Daniel had spent the last 8 months stationed overseas, counting the days until he could return home to his wife, Emily. Every letter she wrote spoke of how much she missed him, how she couldn't wait to have him back in her arms. His best friend, Jake, had promised to check in on her while he was away, just like he always did. Daniel trusted Jake with his life. After all, they had grown up together, joined the military together, and had always had each other's backs. The flight home was long, but his excitement kept him awake. He hadn't told Emily he was coming back early, wanting to surprise her. He pictured her expression when she opened the door and saw him standing there, imagined the way she would throw her arms around him and kiss him like she had the day he left. That thought kept him going. When he finally arrived, it was late in the evening. The house was dark, except for the faint glow of light coming from the bedroom window. He quietly unlocked the front door, stepping inside with a soft smile on his face. The familiar scent of home filled his lungs, and for a moment, everything felt right. But then, he heard something that made his heart stop. Laughter. Not just any laughter, Emily's. But there was another voice, deep and familiar. Jake's. His grip on his duffel bag tightened as he took slow, measured steps toward the staircase. His mind raced, trying to come up with an explanation. Maybe Jake had just stopped by to check on her, to keep her company. Maybe he was overthinking things. But then he heard the sound of hushed whispers, of sheets rustling, and a soft moan that shattered every illusion he had been desperately clinging to. His breath came in sharp and shallow as he reached the bedroom door. It was slightly ajar, and with a single push, it swung open, revealing the truth he had never wanted to see. Emily was lying in bed, the sheets barely covering her, her eyes widening in horror as she saw him. Jake sat beside her, his face turning ghostly pale, frozen in place like a man caught in enemy fire with nowhere to run. Daniel didn't say a word. He didn't yell, didn't demand answers. He just stood there, staring at the two people he had trusted more than anyone in the world. The silence was suffocating. "Dan," Jake started, his voice weak, but Daniel raised a hand, stopping him before he could spew a pathetic excuse. Emily scrambled to sit up, her voice trembling. "It's not what it looks like!" A bitter laugh escaped Daniel's lips before he could stop it. Not what it looked like? How many times had he heard that cliché in movies, never thinking it would be used against him? He clenched his jaw, forcing himself to remain calm, though every muscle in his body screamed at him to do something, to yell, to punch Jake in the face, to demand why. But in the end, what would that change? The damage was already done. Jake finally stood up, stepping toward him. "Man, please, I can explain." "Don't," Daniel said, his voice low and controlled, though his heart was hammering in his chest. "Just don't." He looked at Emily, the woman he had loved, the woman he had dreamed of coming home to, and all he felt now was emptiness. She had been his world, and in one night, she had burned it all to the ground. Without another word, Daniel turned and walked away. He heard Emily call his name, heard Jake mumble something under his breath, but he didn't stop. He grabbed his duffel bag from the floor, stepped out into the cold night air, and let the door shut behind him. The betrayal cut deeper than any wound he had ever suffered in combat. He had faced war, had seen friends die, had carried the weight of loss on his shoulders, but nothing had ever prepared him for this. As he walked down the empty street, the only thought in his mind was that the life he had fought so hard to return to had never truly been his at all.